Welcome back to our C++ series, and today we're going to be looking at session number 4, and session number 4 looks into comparing values. This is session number 4 based on some elements of session number 3, where we looked at arithmetic functions or arithmetic commands. Let's have a look at the two learning objectives / outcomes we have for this session. The first one looks into understanding the concept of comparing values. The second one looks into understanding the use of comparing values and the use of manipulations we're going to be looking at within this session. In session number 3, we looked at the table where we looked at arithmetic functions, where we looked at plus, minus, divide, and multiplication, and 3 additional C++ operators, which were modulus, increment, and decrement. Today we're going to be looking at 2 main factors for that, which I've circled up here for you in red. It's going to be looking at equality and inequality. The rest are basically simple maths functions. So from your side of it, just concentrate on these two, which is the double equal sign and the inequality sign for this session up today. The equality sign, which is represented with the 2 equal operators, compares 2 operands. So it compares 2 aspects of variables, if you want to see it like that. And if both of them are equal, it returns 1 as an answer. And if these 2 are not equal, so it will give you a false, which is represented within a 0. But if both of the numbers are equal, it will give you 1, as we mentioned above. Yes, true. But when we look at something called the ASCII table, which is it's an American Standard table where we look at all of these characters on your keyboard have a numeric value, and these numeric values are basically converted down to binary, and we can compare it as binary and denary with the comparing function. The inequality operator is exactly the opposite of the equality operator, and if both of them are not the same, it will say yes, you're right, both of them are not the same. It gives you 1 as an answer. And if both of them are basically the same, it will say false as a 0. So how you want to remember it, just draw some boxes. So if I, for example, have a char box, and that is called, let's say, letter 1, and we put a capital A in it, and we put another box, and that's a char as well, and we put a lowercase a in it, and we call it letter 2. So from a equality operator, which is a double equal sign, both of them will be considered false, and the false will be represented as 0. Because a capital A and a lowercase a have different ASCII representations with them, so it's considered false. From an inequality operator, which is this sign up here, these 2 will be considered as 1, because the factor looks into 2 factors which are not the same, and which is in this case is true. The capital and the lowercase a are not the same. Let's look at a bit of more theory associated to that unit over the session. We're going to look at the greater or operator, which we have come across within your maths, pretty sure within your maths studies itself. So we have the greater operator, which looks into which one is greater than the other. Then we have a less operator, and this is represented with 1s and 0s as well as the inequality and equality operator as well. These 2 factors we're going to be losing just as an example up very quickly, so I'm not going to go into that much depth of that, but just want to kind of remind you that these operators are represented in the maths libraries as well, and you would have come across these in basic maths, and within C++ we use similar operators to see or compare these values together. Let's have a look at our program today. What we're going to do, as in every single session we do, we're going to look at the variables, which I've highlighted for you in red, and I'm going to start drawing our boxes. And looking at the boxes, we're going to kind of start working through every single cout, which are the shoutout messages up here, and to see how to kind of solve the problem or kind of drive around the program. So let's have a look. What do we have? We have 3 variables up here, which are all int boxes. So let me just draw some 3 boxes for you up here. And all of them, as I mentioned, are int. So that means, going back to session number 1, they can hold only a whole number. The first one is called nil, second one is called num, and third one is called max. We put a 0 into the nil, and num we put a 0 as well, and max we put in 1. The second one, or the second line up here, which I'll circle up for you up here, it's got 2 boxes. So very similar to what we looked at in the previous slide. These are both char boxes, and this one is called cap, this one called low, this one has a capital A and a lowercase a. So what we're going to do now, we're going to kind of run through all the coutts very quickly and kind of see if we agree with the situation up here or not. So just a quick reminder, within the equality operations or comparison functions, we're looking at 2 are exactly considered the same, and if 2 of these values within these 2 empty contain a slash holding variables holding data into it are considered exactly the same. If yes, it gives you 1. If they're not the same, it gives you 0, which is false. So what it's doing up here is looking into circle up for you, this one up here. So I kind of put it next to it. It looks at nil, which is this box up here, and num, so this one up here and this one up here, is considered the same, and both of them are holding zeros, so it's considered true, and will be the output of 1. Next one looks into cap and low, which is these 2 up here, the lowercase and uppercase letters. In this case, they're not considered the same, because as we looked at earlier, or we discussed earlier, within the ASCII table, we have 2 different ASCII binary representations of these 2 characters, and that's why they're not considered the same. So hence we have a 0 as an answer. The inequality comparison, if you remind yourself right, is a sign as of that, and it's looking for something which is not equal to each other. And if it's not equal to each other, it says true, you're right, they're not the same. Hence you get an answer of 1. And if they are considered the same, it will give you a 0. That you're false, they're not. And in this case, the answer is 1, because we're looking at nil and max, which in our case here is a 0 and it's a 1. So they're considered both different. So that's why the answer for that is true, is 1. We're looking at greater comparison, so nil and max. So nil is 0, as you can see in the box up here, and max is considered 1. And saying basically that 0 is bigger than 1. That's false, so it will give you 0 as an answer. Let's look at the remaining coutts. I'll put a cross next to it so you roughly know where we are. And the lesser comparison, we're looking at nil, which is represented with a 0, and max, which is represented with 1. It's saying that nil is smaller than max, and that is true, because you have 1 as an answer. Equal or greater or equal comparison. So it's saying nil, which is 0, is greater than or equal to num, which is considered 0, so it's true, the answer for that, because obviously if that would be just the greater in sign, then it would be wrong, but it's greater or equal to 0, so both of them are considered the same, it's true. And the last one is less or equal comparison. So we're looking in that situation where we're looking at 1 is less than or equal to num, which is 0, and in that case it's false, so the answer for that is 0. That's the end of the comparing values program. What you have to just kind of keep in mind is basically that the outputs for that will be true and false, which are represented 1s and 0s. So we're going to be using a Boolean operator for that. And what we're basically doing is drawing our boxes, looking at what's in the boxes, and comparing these values. And if they're the same, in some cases, we put in a 0. If they're not the same, we put a 0. That's a equality comparisons function, and in inequality we put a 1 if they are not considered the same. So that's the other 2 things you need to kind of keep in mind. The rest is kind of greater comparison, less, greater or equal to, or less or equal to, which is basic maths. And just keep in mind that we're not kind of looking at the answers, we're just looking at true and false for the given statements. And these are represented in ones and zeros. And that is just the proof that what the answers for that will be. That's for you to have a look if you really wanted to. But it's basically the same content we went through on the last slide. I strongly recommend that you Google up the ASCII table and have a look at these different number representations for the tables and for the characters, and kind of start building up your knowledge in that situation. We have got a couple of tips on there. The first tip is obviously looking at uppercases. Just keep in mind that the uppercases are roughly from 65 to 90, and the lower cases, ASCII representations, will be 97 to 122. Hence, the lowercase a and the uppercase a are not considered numerically the same. And as you can see on the second tip, that the uppercase a is 65 and the lower one is 97. So please keep it in mind. That's why these two considered A's, letter A's, but low and uppercase are considered two different numeric representations. I hope this makes sense to you. If you're not 100% sure, have a look at the previous sessions. It might help you build your subject knowledge and try to kind of build on what you've already done so far. From now onwards, we're going to look at a bit more mathematical comparisons. So the remaining few, the next few upcoming sessions will be similar content to what we're going through today. So have a look at it. If you're not 100% sure, just go through the remaining sessions, the previous sessions which you've gone through, and that should technically help you out a bit to get a bit more background on C++. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys back at session number 5. See ya. Bye.